When it comes to legendary movie scream queens, I think a lot of people immediately think of Jamie Lee Curtis. And that's cool. I get it. She's definitely right up there. Still, this lady is tops in my book. And if you give me just a few minutes, I'll tell you why. I know. At first it looked like Adrienne Barbeau was destined for a career in TV comedy. Her role as Maude's daughter Carol on the classic Norman Lear sitcom helped elevate her fame and celebrity after starring on Broadway as Rizzo in the original version of the musical Grease. And after Maude, Barbeau seemed to be all over the TV screen with guest appearances on shows like 8 is Enough and Quincy. And of course, she also did the whole Aaron Spelling thing, appearing in a couple of episodes of The Love Boat, as well as multiple episodes of Fantasy Island. I actually remember circling this exact TV listing in my family's copy of TV Guide. Sheesh, I was such a geek. Anyway, this video is not about Ms. Barbeau's extensive TV and movie filmography. If it were, I could spend hours talking about her work. Instead, I'm going to focus on a few specific memories and then provide an update on what's happened with her since the late 70s and early 80s. Okay, so where should I start? Let's start here. Ah, look at those happy people. Dang straight they should be happy. Beautiful actress meets and falls in love with less beautiful but incredibly talented director. It's a match made in entertainment heaven. Yep, when John Carpenter, fresh off his success with the classic horror film Halloween, laid eyes on the lovely Miss Adrienne, he knew that he'd found his muse. And their first effort together was pure horror movie gold. In the movie The Fog, Barbeau plays Stevie Wayne, a local radio DJ in a town that is celebrating its 100th anniversary. And since this is a horror movie, we all know that things are not going to end well for all of the inhabitants of this small coastal town, thanks to a weird glowing fog that conceals vengeful nautical ghosts. Yep, it's really good stuff, and truthfully, I like this movie a whole lot more than Halloween. But next up was my favorite John Carpenter movie of all time. Not a horror movie, instead just a really cool movie with a great anti-hero named Snake Plissken, played at least at that time against type by Kurt Russell. In Escape from New York, Barbeau plays Maggie. She and her boyfriend Brain play critical roles in the film, but things don't go well for either of them. But at least Plissken survives. He would need to, as later on he would have to escape from LA. Not a horror movie, but released around the same time as Escape from New York is another classic movie, The Cannonball Run. My memories may be playing tricks on me, but I swear I saw both Escape from New York and Cannonball Run together at the Redwood Drive-In way back in the summer of 1981. Anyway, Ms. Barbeau's role in that movie was a relatively small one, but it was a memorable one for sure. The following year, Adrienne starred in the movie that will forever be one of my favorites, the Wes Craven classic, Swamp Thing, based on the DC comic book of the same name. I saw this movie twice at the theater, and then multiple times on video since then. Conversely, I hated that poster. Maybe it was because neither Swampy or Ms. Barbeau were photorealistic in it. I know it's a weird pet peeve, but for whatever reason it just bugged me. And in that same year, 1982, Adrienne starred in one of the segments of the George A. Romero and Stephen King anthology movie, Creepshow. Her segment was called The Crate. And I don't want to spoil anything for someone who hasn't seen this movie but intends to. Although by now, you really should have gotten around to it. But I'll just say, stay away from the crate, Wilma! It was around that time that Carpenter and Barbeau's relationship started to head south. To my knowledge, her final collaborative effort with Carpenter was as a computer voice in his remake of the movie The Thing. After that, I kind of lost track of Adrienne for a little while. I do remember her in Rodney Dangerfield's 1986 comedy classic Back to School. In that movie, she starred as Dangerfield's soon-to-be ex-wife. Not a lovable character at all, but hey, it's a Rodney Dangerfield comedy. Basically a live-action cartoon with a lovable sad sack who, well, you know, he gets no respect. The next thing that I remember Adrienne in was as the voice of Selina Kyle, also known as Catwoman, on Batman the Animated Series. Along with The Simpsons, I truly believe that this is one of the greatest cartoons of all time, and perhaps even to this day the best TV or movie adaptation of the classic comic book character. So like I said, the relationship with Carpenter went south, and after divorcing him in 1984, Barbeau focused on her work for years before finding love again with actor and playwright Billy Van Zandt. They were married on the final day of 1992, and 5 years later, they welcomed twins into this world. The twin boys have an older brother from Barbeau's marriage to Carpenter. At the time of the birth of her twins, Adrienne was over 50. 51, I think, in fact, and she joked that she was the only person in the maternity ward who also had an AARP card. For the next few years, Barbeau would make occasional appearances on TV as either a guest star or in a TV movie, but truthfully, she focused on her kids. Not just the twins, but all three boys. From everything that I've read, they were very much her life's focus. More recently, Barbeau joined the cast of the long-running daytime soap opera General Hospital. I haven't watched this one much since the good old days of Luke and Laura, but I do have a sister-in-law who watches this show even to this day religiously. And from what I can tell, talking to her, it's the reoccurring appearances by stars like Barbeau, as well as former stars of the show itself, that keep her watching. In 2012, Barbeau starred in Ben Affleck's award-winning film Argo as Alan Arkin's character's former wife. Since that time, she's appeared on the FX series Sons of Anarchy, as well as returned to her roots with the Broadway touring company of the acclaimed musical Pippin. So despite a life that is so much more than a handful of horror and science fiction movies that she made in the early 80s, Barbeau has never shied away from talking about that period in her life. In fact, she celebrates it. She's a frequent attendee at various fan events and is always willing to share her memories of a really great time in her life. In fact, she's taken that celebration to new heights with a stage event of her own called There Are Worse Things That I Could Do, where Adrienne shares stories from her entire career. Truthfully, this thing sounds like an utterly delightful way to spend a couple of hours, and I hope at some point a version of this is either recorded and made available to stream, or what the heck, how about you bring the show to Salt Lake City, Adrienne? 2019 also marked a return to the world of Swamp Thing on DC Universe's short-lived TV series. I haven't seen this one yet, but it's disappointing that it only ran for a single season. And wouldn't you know it, Adrienne is also going back to the Creepshow franchise. All in all, Ms. Barbeau's career and personal life seem to be clicking along quite nicely, and from everything that I can tell, her success is well-deserved. Although I suspect she will have to play a different character than she did in the original Creepshow movie. Like I said, stay away from the crate, Wilma! So that's it. One more picture. What a great movie. I love Swamp Thing. The sequel with Heather Locklear wasn't as good, but this one, well, it's a cult classic. Anyway, please share your memories in the comments section, and while you're at it, I'd love a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and I would be absolutely honored if you would consider subscribing to my channel. I talk about music, movies, and television, mostly from the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s. You know, the good stuff. But most importantly, and as always, thank you so much for watching.